Hi, this is Keaton, and this is the first intro for my podcast, The West Noise. And what it is me having conversations with a variety of people who I harass via email. So a few of them have actually responded, which is kind of cool. And one of them is a man by the name of Robert Miller, who is a composer. He's done some commercials, about 2,000 of them, roughly. Some for Coke, won a couple awards. He's done quite a bit of documentaries, some of the ESPN 30 for 30s. He did Particle Fever, Netflix hit. And most notably, recently, he has done some of the music for Louis C.K.'s upcoming film, I Love You Daddy, which is intriguing. And that's the bulk of what we got to talk about today. So yeah, it's Halloween, and I didn't do much about that fact. I had some macaroni and cheese. I listened to some Dead Man's Bones. I listened to Nightmare Before Christmas soundtrack. Watched that in Coraline last night. Listened to some spooky stuff, and besides that, I didn't eat any candy. Didn't dress up. But that's okay, because I talked to Robert Miller. And that's all that matters. So what this is pretty much I just enjoy speaking to people and finding out what they do and why they do it and where they do it, how they do it. So that's a fact, but what I'm unsure of is whether or not others will get anything out of listening to me have those conversations with people. So only time will tell. And hopefully it's not a complete piece of garbage and that there's something redeemable from me speaking. But like I said, we'll just have to wait and see. So here's me talking to Robert Miller.
Right, what is that, 20-something years now?
Yeah.
Happy Halloween, by the way.
Oh, yeah, thank you too.
I don't know if you're a big Halloween guy, but...
I like all holidays. I'm into it. Yeah.
Do you do anything on Halloween in particular?
I'm just going to see how my neighborhood lights up tonight and see what goes on. I'm not going to do anything particularly special. I mean, I'm here working now. But I do right. love Halloween, and I like in general all holidays.
That's good. Good.
Did you did you watch the trailer to I Love You Daddy?
I did, and I was.
What did you think of it?
I'm not even making it up. The music was the first thing that I was like, wow, because I went
really?
for it. Yeah, and I'm very excited to see it. I know there's been some controversy with it, and because of the script and whatnot, and I personally find comedy to be comedy. Mm-hmm. So I know there's a lot of things that people saying that certain situations in the movie are not correct or whatever, and I saw Louis came out and said it's just a movie, and that was pretty much what I followed. But I've been excited to hear about any project he has, and then when I saw he had a new movie, I was immediately interested. And then when the trailer came out, I'm really happy about the fact that it's all shot on the 35mm black and white. I think that's a really interesting approach. I like everybody in it. Big Malkovich fan. I like Chloe Grace Moretz. I really like Pamela. So I'm eager. So how do you fit into that? How do you even?
Yeah, I mean, there's a point person in the middle of Zach and myself, and that is Jonathan Schultz, who's a music editor that I think Zach had worked with on one film, but that I had worked with just in the last year. I worked with him like on 3 movies, and he's a terrific guy and hard worker. He was with Howard Shore during a lot of Howard's big films, the Hobbit trilogy, things like that. So,
wow.
Jonathan Schultz is a very experienced music editor. And so Zach had a connection to Louis C.K. and Zach was hired to work on the film, and then they started to kind of take stock in the kinds of things that Louis had been temping into the movie, and a lot of them were very, very big, very traditional, slightly old world symphonic things. And by the way, on that trailer, it just happens to be that all that symphonic music that's on the trailer is my contribution.
Wow.
To the film. Yeah, just my contribution in minutes is smaller than Zach's. Zach, was the guy on board first.
Right.
But what happened was, Zach and Jonathan had kind of, I guess they took stock in the situation, and Jonathan realized that it was with the speed that Louis wanted to get it done and all that they were going to need some help. So,
right. You seem quite experienced in that.
Yeah, and that's an area, my history is with symphonic composition. I mean, I do a lot of other things too. I mean, I grew up in the Bronx. I love a lot of things that are off topic from.
Yeah, I was going to be curious as to like what a composer listens to. Like, do you just listen to anything that comes on? Do you just sit down and listen to orchestra music?
Yeah, I keep my ears open to everything. When I hear something that I love, I don't care what the genre. I'm very open-minded. But I did, start, I mean, even though I was listening to everything from the Beatles to Jimi Hendrix to all of Motown to, oh my gosh, Cream, lots of stuff.
Yeah.
So growing up, I was listening, I managed to end up with a year of studying with the guy that was my number one mentor, and that's Aaron Copland, who was a very famous American composer.
Wow.
So that, so symphonic music, and I listen to, my gosh, so much stuff. Stravinsky is one of my heroes, and I went through a big Beethoven phase, a big Brahms phase,
That's so interesting to me.
Yeah, it's a lot. I'm all over the place, but this idea that I can, that I'm what people might refer to as a symphonist, even though I would just say that simply the orchestra is just a natural language of mine. Jonathan had recommended that it might be a good thing for me to jump on board the film, and so just through the process of us talking, it was decided that I'd come on as a co-composer, and then I would work on a certain aspect of the film, and Zach would continue doing what he was doing, which was quite a lot. I mean, he worked really hard on this film, and did a really good job. And
like I said, the trailer, I really enjoyed that. So I'm excited to see how it goes in the movie.
It would be very interesting for you to see the film now, and then also to see how the trailer represents the film. And
the music sounds kind of light. The music sounds kind of like fairy-ish, sort of like up in the air, upbeat a little bit. And
yeah,
like,
a lot of it is.
I mean,
like you were hearing, right? You were hearing excerpts of the several of the symphonic waltzes that were written, and Louis had been very interested in these elegant Viennese style waltzes, and yeah, he kind of explained it to us that he wanted.
You got to speak with him and sit down and like hear what his music idea was.
He had visited the studio one day and sat and spoke, and we had conference calls as well. But he was here and in my studio, and he was mentioning that he wanted it to seem that the characters in the film were breathing rarefied air from an altitude, like as if to say that they had money, and
that
money
makes sense.
Came
when I apply that to like what I heard,
elegance,
that makes sense.
Yeah.
I know he was very on his show, Louis. I've read a lot about how he would make the jazz music for that, because a lot of that was just made like in the studio. And I remember reading like he would just sit down with them and tell them like what this idea he wanted. And Louis is a very dark show, but the music is often just this comfortable sort of relaxing feel when the content can be very dark. And I just think the way he thinks seems to be really interesting, especially for like when it's a comedian, because I feel like he's more focusing on like the tone. He isn't totally just trying to get jokes across or just get the plot across. Like he's understanding. I don't feel like too many people, like music can sometimes be left out. Like I'll watch a movie sometimes and the music is good, but it's very in there. It doesn't contribute. And it seems like he really took that into account, which is super interesting.
It is, and it sounds to me, like obviously you're a big Louis C.K. fan. It sounds to me that you have an understanding of his aesthetic, and I think that really is, I don't want to speak for anybody, Louis C.K. or anybody else, but I will tell you that from my own perspective, that seems right, and he was really kind of concerned with capturing a certain spirit, and he really likes the way a bygone era kind of happened musically. He referred to things in the 40s and 50s and these Viennese waltzes, and just stuff that is absolutely not part of the language of most contemporary films. So it was very interesting, and the score got recorded all live with a big group in London, Abbey Road Studios.
That's
that's also kind of rare. I mean, the film was made independently, so
that's
to go to those lengths to have a score that has that much to offer and is that grand is also an interesting aspect. And I guess we'll see what the public by and large thinks, when the movie comes out.
What did you think? How did it turn out?
Really well.
Do you think the music fit with the whole thing?
Absolutely. I think that it's a really fascinating collision of a contemporary story with a little bit of, as you say, there's a little bit of edge to the story, and it's very timely right now. Certainly, right? I mean,
yeah, absolutely.
I saw some posts on YouTube that were like, I can't figure out if this is the worst timing ever or the best timing ever.
Every time he comes out with new material, I think I don't think it can be the worst time if you're just making it happen. Like when he speaks on things, it's not because not just him specifically, but anyone in general. When you create a piece of art, like it's not to cause a ripple or to be like, haha, look what I can do. It's always important to face the controversies face on and to acknowledge problems that are occurring. In my opinion, at least, it's always better to open that wound and like look at it and look at the things that are wrong rather than just ignore it or act like the opening of that wound is a problem or like it needs to be censored, if that makes sense.
Right. Well, it's he seems very comfortable from what it feels like when he was speaking in Toronto, and I think right now, I mean, he doesn't seem to want to defend anything, which I really admire. I mean, if I just look at it like a fan, I would think, wow, he's just very, very courageous, very comfortable, and very honest. And
right, I love that.
Yeah, so I think, and he also, the character in the film is a character that has the right idea morally, that is not strong enough to just command the room and take charge. It's a person with the right ideas, but not necessarily enough intestinal fortitude to carry out those ideas. But he's a person in the film with like heart's in the right place and morals are in the right place. So here you go. It's like going to be interesting to see. And this whole cast, I can't say enough actually about. I personally, Chloe Grace Moretz, this amazing young actress. Holy cow!
I've always been fascinated with her. She was, I think, the first thing I saw her in was Kick-Ass, which was I don't even know how many years ago, but she was definitely young, and she just seems to have that sort of wisdom to acting.
Incredible.
That you don't always see.
Yeah, uncommon, like way beyond her years, and she has a lot in her face. When you look at her on screen, it's a very wise and mature look. I mean, she's clued in. You know, there's no question.
Right, she's 20 years old. That's so
Yeah.
young for, and like even from the bits that I saw in the trailer, just some of the moments where it was just Louis and her, and she would just like look at him, and like she wouldn't have to say anything, and you could just see like
that's right.
She's already made up in her mind this relationship with her dad.
Yeah, her face
and
she's deeply expressive.
It doesn't look like she's trying to portray someone. It looks like she is his daughter. It looks like she
That's
is
right.
that close to him. Which
That's right.
I feel like it's harder to pull off than it sounds.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's amazing. And, you know, Pamela Adlon, who's been with Louis in his shows, is
right.
fantastic. She's really talented. John Malkovich, we all know he's a
John Malkovich.
complicated and quirky, but very interesting guy, very, very talented. Edie Falco's a veteran, and she's amazing. And yeah, so he got him. And Helen Hunt, you know, who doesn't have much to do in the film, but these are all big-time pros. They're all really, really good.
He always seems very particular in his casting. Like, I know I keep referring back to his show, but like it seemed everybody that was in that show, every character was picked precisely. Like they served their purpose. There was no one-off. And
yeah.
I'm hoping, and that's what it sounds like this movie is going to be like, is that no matter the role, they're going to serve like the exact purpose necessary for it.
I'm sure you'll feel that way. And yeah, I mean, I really wish him a tremendous amount of success. You know, in this venture, and you know, when you do this and you take a big risk, you know, he sold the movie right away, but he took a big risk after all.
Right.
You know, he put all of his own money into it, and you know,
I think he just wants to create, and I just respect that immensely.
Yeah.
He made it because he wanted to, and that's really important.
I will also say this too, you know. You're going to see a lot about the homage to Woody Allen and all of that.
Yes.
And I would say that what artist works in such a vacuum that there isn't an homage somewhere along the line? And, you know, composers have their favorite composers, and a lot of times you hear a work and you go, wow, that sounds like it's an homage to, like I was referencing my teacher, Aaron Copland. You know, there's a couple of my orchestra works that were written specifically as homages to, you know, to my hero, Aaron Copland.
Right.
And so someone else would come along and just hear what I did and say,
well,
and then make that comment. And then, you know, and then some people might make the comment and criticize. Next person will come along and say, you know, bravo, that's, you know, a really, you know, passionate tribute to somebody that's obviously a hero of yours. You know, like, I guess we are so quick to criticize, and this country is all about this, like, idea of just figuring all these things out. And actually, Aaron Copland himself used to say that America has what's called the masterpiece complex. When something comes out, you want to be able to write that it's totally original. You know, you can't even trace the influences, and it's an immediate masterpiece. When the truth is that the arc of any artist's career, I mean, you know, early Brahms sounds like late Beethoven, and early Beethoven sounds like late Mozart.
Right. You can't. Everything plays off of something.
That's
even
right.
If you don't state it directly, it's unrealistic to expect just pure geniuses to come out. Like, I mean, not to say that there aren't people that are just incredibly beyond talented at what they do, but I feel like we have such a surplus of entertainment and media that, like, it's very hard to make something that's like brand new. Wow, nobody's ever heard of anything even along the lines of that before. But I think that's kind of okay, because it's not necessarily a remake. Like, it's not a sequel. It's not a reboot for money reasons. But it's using the past to help inspire.
Right. Yeah.
Yes.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. And I find that those things are the domain of people that like to criticize, and I think that just the rest of us artists have to just keep going and doing what we do. And you have to, when you put something out, you know you're going to get some critics, but you know you have to believe in what you're doing, and then stand behind it. And
I fully believe, even if, say I made a song and nobody liked it in the entire world, if I like 100% felt that I did the best I could in that song and like I was happy with it, then what's the problem? I don't see the problem in that.
Exactly. I mean, the internet kind of makes it so easy for all of us to comment so often about so much.
Everything.
And it gets too noisy.
Right. You can't just sit back and enjoy something.
That's right.
Just let it be what it is.
Yeah. You know, we create culture to deal with the rest of life, which is not so pretty and often very complicated and depressing at times. And you know, so it's all you know, it's all good. I mean, there is certainly, most of us would be able to perceive when something is done so badly that it's just unwatchable or unlistenable.
Right.
That's a different story. I mean, and that, you know, that is a far cry from how I feel about you know, Louis C.K.'s movie. I think it's incredibly well done, and when you think about the effort it takes to star and direct and, you know, and be a co-writer in your own film, and then edit. Oh my God! I mean,
yeah, to edit it too. I was very surprised by that. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
That's another step.
That's huge. Yeah.
So I'm still fascinated by the fact that like you ended up on a Louis C.K. movie. When looking at everything you've done in the past, you've done thousands of commercials just with all sorts of brands, and I see you've done like many documentaries. Do you like search for a certain genre or area, or are you just like, if that sounds good, I'm gonna put some music with it? Like how does it even come to that?
I mean, it's just, you know, the projects, because of my reputation and from, you know, people I know that you know, or, you know, recommendations or my agent or whatever, the projects come to me, and then people will discover what my particular strong points are, and then I'll get hired based on that. So you know, I have done a lot of very, very well-known documentaries, but I like dramatic narratives probably most of all. I mean, I love my documentaries, so don't take this as me dissing, because I do a lot of really interesting films. I mean, I'm working on Eugene Jarecki's The Promised Land right now, which is going to be a great film. I've done a lot of good films in the past. I've worked on now 13 ESPN 30 for 30s.
Yes, I saw the 30 for 30s. I was watching.
Yeah, and you know, and those things are, you know, essentially, right, if you just break it down, these are essentially sports documentaries, but they are done like, especially the director I work with, they're done like these wonderful moving narrative features, and they're very compelling.
And that's fascinating to be able to pull that out of a documentary about sports, when it could easily just be, here's some statistics, here's some words somebody said about it, but to make it a movement or a story in some way, that's just really, really impressive.
Yeah, it's a hard form. It really is. So I get, you know, lots of offers for things, and I and if I like the project, you know, that's the other part of the equation. And somebody wants to work with me, bingo, we're in. You know, we're good. Like, I'm working on a movie right now called The Bit Juggler, which is about the father of the information age that nobody seems to know about, Claude Shannon. He's the guy that actually invented how we store information, and everything. We really kind of owe everything to him. Everything about.
Well, I haven't heard of him, so there you go.
Isn't that amazing? Well, neither did I. So
I feel like that happens a lot. There's a lot of people that are unsung behind the scenes that don't.
This is one of the most massive unsung lives ever. I mean, when you consider what we do in this world now, this guy kind of was the foundation of all of this. And I'm enjoying, you know, that's a project that's just been getting underway the last couple of weeks, and this is really fun.
Do you usually make the music to the movie, the project, then? You don't?
Yeah.
Do you ever
you always get a cut. Yeah, you're always scoring to. Sometimes in the process, it's just a rough cut, block cut, but that's right. That's the process. It's not done in a vacuum where you're throwing music at somebody that's going to start figuring out how to cut in music into your movie.
Right.
That sometimes happens on documentaries because documentaries take so long to form, and sometimes the director is just trying to figure out how to make a movie from a bunch of raw footage and a bunch of
right. It's less like producing or creating than it is.
That's right.
Just piecing together.
Yeah, yeah. But I like to work as if it's a narrative. I like when documentaries have that form. So, but yeah, it's a long process that begins with talking about general direction to spotting the film, which is basically locating all the places that music goes into a movie, to talking about, more specific things, genre, things like that. Like Louis C.K. saying, I really feel like this should be all these grand waltzes because it creates this idea of the rarefied air. And, when he said that, I was like, oh, yeah.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah, very interesting. He's saying real high altitude stuff, and I knew what he meant, right? It's kind of a very, very, very kind of, I guess if you follow Louis C.K.'s monologues and in his stand-ups, like that would be like the kind of thing he would say,
Right.
But with any director, that's how it goes. So I work on a lot of very interesting, varied projects that I fall in love with for a variety of reasons, and want it to continue forever, if that's possible.
Okay,
I mean, commercials the same way. I mean, it's a whole other animal, but I love scoring commercials, and I do a lot of it.
Yeah, what is that like? We didn't even touch on that. I feel like that's just a different beast because that's not only lengthwise, but just like there's such a central open message. And I feel like with Coke and things like that, like larger brands, there's usually like some sort of story, even if it is a commercial. There's sometimes a family, there's sometimes something happening rather than just like a Taco Bell commercial, like come buy this new taco, So like how does that differ from film? Like, is it at the point that they just give you the whole commercial pretty much and then you do it?
Yes. Yeah. I get a pretty locked cut to work with usually. And you are scoring to a story and you are making something come to life a lot like you would in a film, but the form is so different. The music's usually wall to wall on a commercial, and the thing about it is that you're telling a story, and usually very high. I mean, I work on stuff that has pretty good, solid budgets. Pretty high budgets, but the one main thing being that in the end, the agenda is to serve the client's ultimate goal.
Absolutely.
It's not a little piece unto itself. So there are so many more layers of people weighing in, and for different reasons. There may be something where I write. Let's just by way of example, I may write something for a commercial that really fits a particular storyline and works well with the film, but it's fairly dark music. Let's just say, and it may work really well for the story, but it may be, let's say, and Coke is a great example. They are always on guard for anything that feels dark. They want to be happy. They're the happy.
I mean, that makes sense. It makes sense.
Yeah.
But
right. So if so if it's I remember doing a Super Bowl commercial a few years ago. It was animated, and it was kind of dark, but thank God it was animation, and it turned happy in the end. But there was a lot of nervous tension at Coke about, is this too dark for Coke? So it's about their image.
Wow.
Their corporate. Any client, any company has an eye out for their corporate image, and if the art part of a commercial is getting in the way of that corporate image, you damn can be sure you'll hear about it.
Do you think, so you're saying music is strong enough, like, say Totally Happy commercial, if the music was just a little dark, do you think they would be, like, sincerely concerned that, like, that music would affect, like, customers on a singular basis that much?
Well,
from the music?
I know. You know what?
Way?
Here's, I can hear your kind of slight, very mild skepticism about that, and I share it.
Little, yeah.
I would say this, that they're not necessarily realistic, but if you're not an artist and you are very concerned, you're running this giant ship, a
mm-hmm.
billion-dollar corporation like Coke. You do think that everything in the public eye is impact you, and you get very nervous.
That way.
So even if what's happening is what's in reality what it is that dark score and that very kind of interesting, darker kind of commercial is compelling a lot of young people to go, man, that's cool. And it sheds a nice light on Coke. Inadvertently, Coke will not take that chance, is kind of what I'm saying.
Right.
There are
I guess if
clients,
you have something that big.
Yeah. Some clients will, by the way. Some clients don't, think that kind of slightly darker things are kind of cool.
Right, like you see some commercials for big brands that are like Super Bowl is a really good example. Like there are edgy commercials with jokes that could potentially be offensive, but like they take that jump because somebody decided like that's the brand that we're okay with presenting a little bit.
I think that and the Super Bowl, unfortunately, I've seen the risk-taking diminish a little bit over the course of the last few years.
Yeah, I can say,
too bad because
I agree with that.
Yeah, it's too bad because a lot of great shit happens when you're just like daring and in front of an audience of
it's what's funny.
It's
what's most human, because to try to edit out things, of course, is good to make a nice spick and span product, but if you leave stuff in that's totally inventive or totally not written, that's what like makes you laugh the most. Like that's why on live TV, when SNL, for example, when people break character, like that's when I hear people laugh the most. That's when I laugh the most, because it's like those moments, and I think it's important to leave those moments in sometimes.
That's right. Yeah.
Regardless of your brand, regardless of how much money it's worth or who's watching, because I feel like people are smart enough to recognize human moments.
Yeah, and live TV, live comedy used to be way more like that. Like shows from another era, like Carol Burnett and gosh, Dean Martin, and all these shows that are like from the 60s and 70s. All these people are constantly breaking character and cracking each other up, and understanding that that it might be kind of fun to screw with each other on live TV, and it's like and I remember Jimmy Fallon was he was
horrible. He was so bad.
He could not hold
like every single scene.
Especially with Will Ferrell, who seemed to be able to get to him. And so Will Ferrell's kind of such a funny, goofy guy that and he just tapped into Jimmy Fallon's funny bone often. And Jimmy Fallon,
that's what I saw with
talented guy too. Yeah.
Farley and Spade too. Like you could see when they were in a skit together, you could see like Farley knowing he has control over him.
Yeah.
Like personally, or Sandler too. Like Chris Farley with Adam Sandler. Like he would be able to control it because he was just this outrageous character, but he knew he could make the other person laugh. And
right.
Like they add
once you sense it, sometimes you just you smell blood and you go for it.
Right.
So.
And I think it pays off, definitely.
By the way, Louis C.K. is quite funny on SNL. He does a great job.
Yeah.
He's excellent in the skits, I think.
I was impressed by that when he hosted last. I mean, I've been impressed because when I first heard of him, I was younger and just heard stand-up, which is, if you're just a stand-up comic, there's nothing wrong with that at all. But then I saw Louis, then I saw SNL, and it's like, this guy can do multiple things. He can take it further than just stand-up comedian.
Yes, indeed.
He did great on SNL. I remember some really funny skits in there. There was one where he was, what was it? It was some sort of phone store, and like he did an impression, like an urban impression of like an African American, and there was an African American working at the store, and so she came and like addressed that, and he's like, no, that's just how I talk. And so like the skit goes over like 5 years, and he's just always talking like that.
Yeah.
And then like at the end of it, she's like, this isn't actually how I talk, and he's like, oh, thank goodness you said that. It's not how I talk either. And she's like, and then she like gets mad at him. She's like, I knew you were faking the whole time.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is great.
Yeah, I know. That's great shit. I love it.
Like when something's funny, it doesn't need to be analyzed. It doesn't have to be. Wait, are we offended by this? Cause
I know.
If you laugh, you laugh.
That's all you know. That's right. That's all you need to know. And it's instantaneous. Exactly.
All right. Well, thank you for talking to me, Robert. I greatly appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure. Pleasure. Really, pleasure talking to you. I don't know how long you've had your.
This is it.
Blog. Yeah, really.
This is the first one. Yep. I have not done this before. Yep.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, you're great at it.
Well, really? Thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, well, I'm just in college. I'm just a